You're listening to AFN Wiesbaden the Eagle, serving America's best. I'm Sergeant Evan Cooper, and I'm joined on the line with Heather Hough, the dietitian at the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center. So I understand that the holiday season is coming up, and people want to indulge their holiday appetite as well as maintaining like a healthy balance. So what are some recommendations that you have to achieve those goals?
That is a really fantastic question. So I think the first thing that I would recommend is maybe considering the use of the food groups when you're making your plans for your holiday menu. So you could go through each of the food groups. That would be things like fruit and vegetables, grains or starches, protein or meat, and dairy, and really thinking about how these foods might come together for you in a holiday menu.
So as far as the Thanksgiving dinners coming up, what would you recommend as far as you mentioned protein and starches? What about the consumption level? I know people tend to overindulge, but how would you navigate that?
Well, I think you can do a couple of different things. So there are some strategies that line up with mindful eating or intuitive eating that you could really utilize when you're engaging in a holiday eating event, where you really might start by looking at all of the foods that are available to you and really getting a sense of what you think you're going to enjoy the most, and maybe trying to put those on your plate the most. So not picking things, simply because you think that they're healthy, because sometimes when we try to stay away from things that we really love or we really enjoy, we actually find that we crave them more, or we find it, difficult to control our portion sizes around them later. So you might start by surveying what's available and then making your plate as balanced as you can among all the foods that you are looking at. And that's where that plate idea and the food groups really could be a tool to help you navigate that. So if you love turkey and stuffing, they could certainly be on your plate, but maybe you also really enjoy, salad. And it would be nice to have a crispy, crunchy salad on half of your plate while you have the other half of your plate for that stuffing and that turkey.
So as far as navigating that and navigating those food groups and getting that consumption level up, so where are some things that people can go to find some information on this?
Wow, that is such a good question. I think it really depends. There is one really great website that I use when I'm working on meal planning with clients, and it's called diabeticlivingonline.com. And they partner with Eating Well, and they have really great recipes that are very colorful and easy to make. But you might have some traditional things that you enjoy making or that are more of a family recipe, and so it might not make sense to go online to look for new recipes for you. And so if that's the case, you really could look at something like the My Plate from the USDA and use that as kind of a format for maybe the offerings that you might have, and then you can look at how you might put that together. So for example, maybe you decide to serve cranberry sauce, and that's kind of representative of the fruit that you're having, and you decide to do, roasted Brussels sprouts as a vegetable because maybe you're not the biggest fan of green bean casserole, which is sometimes for a lot of people a traditional thing that they like to serve. So you can really dial into the flavors and the things that you enjoy the most, and then design your menu using the food groups as just kind of the reminder for having those things present.
So, but outside of the holidays, what can you recommend for people just, trying to control their diet and just trying to get into shape and their overall wellness?
There are lots of things that you have access to here in the military community that you certainly could utilize. I think that we need to be very careful about turning it into too much of a diet or turning it into too much of a restriction. So it might be helpful as you start to think about what kind of habits or lifestyle you would like to implement or have that you utilize your dietitians. So I am one of several dietitians that works at LARMC, and we service the area all around here, so Wiesbaden area as well. And it might be helpful if you had an appointment with a dietitian to kind of help you steer in the right direction towards your goals without becoming too restrictive or too much of that diet mentality.
So is there anything more that you would like to add before we close out?
I would just like to add that we should work on making holiday meals and everyday meals that are satisfying and fulfilling and are enjoyable.